What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here, and back to review episode 9 of season 3 of the Orville New Horizons, an episode called Domino, one that is easily going to go down in pop culture history as one of the high water marks of this fantastic show. Spoiler alert, obviously, I'm going to be going into all the details because this is one of those episodes that will make people cry, will make people laugh, both with joy and with sadness. And maybe they'll have to change their underwear a few times after all those incredible just action beats in the latter part of the episode. But what do you say about a show that manages to continue to outdo itself each week? Because this episode was written by and directed by like the Orville Dream Team, who I think they do the best episodes for the show. Brennan Braga and Andre Bormanis, they're an incredible writing team, and it was directed by John Cassar. And I just hope they keep working together for a very long time because they can kind of do no wrong when they are teamed up. So, at any rate, I'm going to be a little tongue-tied at first because there's so much that I want to say, but I want to also go slowly to really savor the experience, the emotions. I was definitely getting misty-eyed. I was definitely getting chills. I was overwhelmed. It was just a kick-ass story from start to finish in so many ways. And if you're going to point to a reason why we keep coming back to this show, it's because of episodes like this. Episodes that make so much of the competition out there just seem totally like a giant, colossal waste of time by comparison. Because as I get older, as I turn old and gray and shriveled up, and we have less time in front of us than behind us, I don't want to waste my time on lousy books or lousy movies or a lousy show. I want to have storytelling excellent coming through my eyes and ears at all times whenever I'm, being exposed to a great story. And god damn, this show just continues to fucking deliver. So huge round of applause for everybody involved. Now, Comic-Con was this past weekend, and there was no new news about a possible season 4 for the Orville, but there was news that the Orville will at least be shared on Disney Plus as well, which will hopefully make its audience grow in the years to come, or at a minimum, some people will play catch-up and realize what they've been missing ever since the show premiered. But I almost feel like if somebody starts at season 1 now, they have no idea what's coming because season 1 had its moments, but goddamn, it's like season 2 where it really found its footing. But season 3, the show just continues to evolve and grow in so many interesting ways. But at a minimum, Seth MacFarlane is going to have to do a season of television for the show Ted. I don't really want to see him revisit that story, but he created that character, so more power to him. So it'll be a while, even under the best of circumstances, it'll be a while before any more Orville. So next week is the final episode, but by strange coincidence, a couple days ago, I interviewed the Oscar-winning special effects makeup artist Howard Berger, who worked on all 3 seasons. He was coming on to promote his new book with Marshall Julius, a book called Masters of Makeup Effects, A Century of Practical Magic. But starting at the 47-minute and 22-second mark, if you want to hear one of the superb technicians who helped bring the show to life speak at length about the show, definitely check out that video. I'll leave a link in the description below. But let's dive into this episode, Domino, which really answers that immortal question of to what degree will you fight for your principles, your values, your integrity? Would you give your life for a hated enemy if it means standing up for a principle that you value above all others, a value like peace? And in every life or death conflict, you'll always find people who think they're on the right side, that they're on the right side of history, no matter what side they might be fighting on. Because in this episode, the Mocklins think they're on the right side. The Krills think they're on the right side. The Union thinks it's on the right side. And obviously, the fucking Kalons think they're on the right side. And we see a bit of a shuffling of the deck in terms of who's on whose side. And it opens up with this brilliant scene where the Krill Chancellor meets with this Mocklin delegation where they immediately manage to offend her by basically impugning her for being a woman, and they won't accept female leadership, but she basically puts them in their place and says, look, y'all are great at making weapons, but I'm a more cunning tactician. But it's an alliance made in hell, which will have huge ramifications for the Union, which we then see in combat versus this Kalon fleet of like 60 ships, totally surrounded. I thought it was a simulation at first, but we see how they're using other Union ships as a shield so that the Orville can activate their secret weapon, which completely, totally wipes them out. And as we learned from Burke and Isaac, they learned how to create this domino effect through this synchronization matrix that Isaac is no longer a part of. But the greater the power source, the greater the range of the weapon. And in theory, the weapon could have limitless range, which launches this giant moral debate, or a giant debate about the moral implications about a possible genocide of all the Kalons. And I think it's a debate that will excite interesting internal debates in the audience, because as the audience, we can be exhilarated by the size and the scale and the scope of the devastation after the Orville successfully uses that weapon. I mean, the camera's pulling back, and we just see how we are on this cosmic scale that is exhilarating to watch. On the other hand, we're talking about the extermination of an entire race, even if they are completely, totally misguided in their paranoia about what humans might represent. And so I love these kind of internal debates that you see within the Union. Obviously reminds us of the best of Star Trek. And we see how it ignites debates on the Orville itself, where Lamar has to kind of briefly put Ensign Burke in her place when she accuses him of being biased. And it was a great little scene. We don't usually see Lamar being adversarial, confrontational with people, or kind of pulling rank, but I was like, whoa, all right. But ultimately, the Union Council decides to use the weapon as a deterrent to negotiate a ceasefire, or they will use it again on a much larger scale. And when the Orville shows up at the Kalon homeworld, immediately the Kalon attack, and holy shit, the Orville's just in God mode, because every time they initiate, it's like, boom, like there go 50 ships, boom, there go 50 ships. Finally, the Kalon reluctantly give them landing coordinates, but it reminded me of almost like a cheat code in a video game where you suddenly become unkillable and you're just killing everything in front of you. But anyway, this was some wild sci-fi. I mean, I think it's safe to say that in calendar year 2022, the best sci-fi you can see in the world of motion pictures on the big or small screen has got to be the Orville. And I don't see every science fiction movie or every science fiction show, but I can't think of anything else that I've seen this year that even comes close. And I was so excited while watching this, and I was so kind of racked with tension and suspense. I was kind of fidgeting in my seat, just having trouble even sitting still, because I was just so excited from just the ongoing tension of the entire episode. In any case, the Kalon do surrender, but they promise to continue looking for a weakness, and then we get maybe the best drunken musical sequence in the Orville's history, where we get a rendition of the song Flowers Never Bend with the Rainfall, a Simon and Garfunkel tune, and we get to see Malloy and Burke doing this duet with the most eerily beautiful harmony. And yeah, Burke, she's got some pipes. She can sing her ass off. And it was at that point where I was like, I think I'm going to start crying while watching this, because there was a period in the late 90s where I listened to this song quite a bit. Back in the days of cassettes, I didn't even have a CD player in my car. I had a cassette player. I had the album with that song, and I played it probably 10,000 times, but I don't know if I've heard that song in over 20 years. But the moment they started playing, I was like, anyway, the flashback about knocked me out of my chair. I had trouble processing it initially, but this is one of those songs that I'm going to go back to and shamelessly watch over and over again in the context of the show. And I'll probably listen to the Simon and Garfunkel tune a few times later this evening. But I love the whole party scene. I laughed my ass off, and at one point, Bortus says, "Do not shout at me. I will access the interior meat," as he's struggling to get that friggin' chestnut or walnut open or whatever. Anyway, Bortus, he's always comedy gold. But while the crew of the Orville's enjoying some much-deserved or well-earned R&R and sleeping off their hangovers, we see that Ted Danson leads this conspiracy to steal the secret weapon, and he takes it back to the new Krill-Moclan alliance, and he acknowledges that only Isaac and Burke know how to use the device. And the Krill and the Moclans, they just fry him down as he's flying in his shuttle back to Earth. He was planning on confessing his crimes and surrendering himself, but we see even there, his character, he thought he was doing what's right. He thought he was fighting for the survival of the Union and of the human race and Earth, etc., and so forth. But I guess it's up to everybody out there to decide whether or not he was in the right or in the wrong. But obviously, when it comes to Union values, you're supposed to fight for the preservation of life at all costs and only use a deadly weapon as a final deterrent or as a final option. But as soon as this theft of the weapon has become revealed, Bortus knows that they'll seek out, I think his name is Dr. Kalba. I heard the name several times throughout the episode, but I couldn't quite get the exact spelling, but at any rate, he's a Moclan weapons specialist, and Bortus knows that he will be the one that will be unlocking the secrets of how to use it on a universal scale. Because as it turns out, the Krill and the Moclans are building one of the biggest goddamn quantum cores ever seen, and the only way the Orville's going to be able to take it out is by proposing an alliance with the Kaylon. And as soon as that happened, I was like, good God, you're talking about a season that's completely been turned on its head. I mean, at the beginning of the season, Kaylons, they were the big baddies. It was like, oh my God, like the indestructible, unbeatable foe. And here you see this giant fleet of Union and Kaylon vessels flying through space together. I mean, we have to remember, this is a fucking TV show, but the scale and the grandeur and the ambition is just awe-inspiring, because it's almost on the level of the final like half hour, 45 minutes of Return of the Jedi, when you've got 3 battles happening simultaneously. You got your space battle to buy the crew on the moon, down on the moon of Endor more time, all while Luke and Darth are fighting in front of the Emperor. This episode didn't have the 3 battles happening, but on the planet battle, you did have some incredible cross-cutting between. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead of myself. But all the central characters, they break up into various teams for this big battle. And I think the most satisfying moment of the whole battle is when the Krill, they're just so confident and having so much fun, thinking that it's going to mop the floor of the Union. And when they realize that a bunch of Kaylons are incoming and you see that confidence get shaken, it was priceless. But yeah, I mentioned before the cross-cutting. So what are the highlights of this giant battle as it unfolds? We've got Lamar and Malloy flying around in little fighters trying to protect this little shuttle as they're getting the ground team down to ground. That was absolutely kick-ass. I love the use of color throughout it, because when you have 4 different civilizations fighting at once, you really need great color coordination just to keep track of whatever the hell is going on, and it just looks gorgeous on the screen when you've got, the Moclans and the Krill and the Kaylons and the Union all fighting simultaneously. But once they're down on the ground, first and foremost, Kelly looks sexy as fuck in her little skydiving suit as she flies down there. I enjoyed seeing Malloy and Lamar going after the transmitter array. That was cool, but we get a nice battle scene between Kelly and the Chancellor. Just a proper fucking knife fight. I was like, God damn, this is getting juicy. I've never really liked the shootouts in the show. They've always felt a little hokey, a little TV-ish in a bad way. But hand-to-hand combat, that scene totally delivered. But I just kept waiting for a double cross from Primary, as Primary is one of the key members of the ground team, and we see him laying waste to some Moclans when they try to escape from the room and they're trying to reverse this countdown. But as Cobbett points out, the countdown can't be reversed. And so while this episode had many great hero beats and many incredible confrontations, obviously the biggest hero beat of all, and I'm getting chills even remembering it, is when you see Burke deciding to make the ultimate sacrifice. And initially, you can kind of see how it's all falling into place, almost like a well-oiled, or I guess like a perfectly designed watch. Because initially, Isaac saves Burke, but in non-lethal fashion, and you can tell that Primary's kind of confused by that. And then when everybody's there, and Burke basically tells everybody they have to leave, because if she's going to try to shut down this giant quantum core, not only will it destroy the weapon, but a big chunk of the planet's going to go bye-bye as well. And watching Primary just taking it all in with that, highly sophisticated brain of his, but just really struggling to understand how somebody who despises the Kaylon would be willing to make that ultimate sacrifice. And it was powerful. And we see just a giant chunk of the planet going bye-bye from a distance. And Primary's brought aboard the Orville, and he admits very reluctantly that perhaps the Kaylons have been incorrect in their assessment. And it was a bone-chilling scene, and it's just incredible how far the story has come since episode 1 of season 3. All the changes to the status quo, all the changes to the various alliances. This fictional setting is just absolutely fascinating. And honestly, the next episode could just be the actors sitting around just reading their scripts in chairs with no special effects. And they will have earned it. They can spike the football. They don't even need to air the next episode. Obviously, I'm going to watch it, but they've done all they need to do with this season. And so as the episode draws to a close, we get a nice scene between Ed and the Chancellor about their daughter Anaya and where she's going to go when the Chancellor's tried for war crimes. And Ed wants her to live with him, but you can tell that Chancellor's not really down on extending that olive branch at all. But the most interesting twist is how the Kaylons are offered a provisional seat on the Union Council, And while they make a kind of they throw a little dagger about how they think representative democracy is inefficient, but then they counter, well, look, it might be inefficient, but it sure as hell superior to every other form of government that's ever been conceived by other human beings. And I never get political on this channel, or try not to, but I'd be inclined to agree. Representative democracy is inefficient, but it sure as hell beats every other alternative out there. So in the final scene, we see Burke posthumously receiving the Medal of Valor, and Isaac gives this very moving tribute. And of course, it's got that little layer of humor as he's describing her love of pancakes. Goddamn, I'm trying not to cry while recording this episode. I'm recording this video, singing this episode's praises. But if people out there were sobbing, I get it. I think this is maybe the most moving episode for me this season. It was just a home run. I loved it. So on that very kind of serious, heartfelt beat, let me talk to you about who is bringing this video to you. This video is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with its exclusive offer for you, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code WRONGREEL at manscaped.com. So if you've been watching my YouTube channel for a while, or you've been listening to my podcast, Wrong Reel, and you want to lend a helping hand to all my commentary endeavors, and you're looking to look good from the waist down, once again, use the discount code WRONGREEL in all caps at manscaped.com, and I'll leave a link in the show notes below for your convenience. But that's all I've got for now. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. Hope everyone loved the episode as much as I did. Hope everyone has a great weekend. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.